Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker. Here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Today, we're going to be having a conversation with our guest, Starla Gay. And Starla, welcome. So glad to have you here today.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Great. So Starla has long been a champion of social justice. She's dedicated her life to empowering individuals and communities. And with over 18 years of experience as a community advocate, activist, and researcher, she is focused on the intersections between social determinants of health, public policy formation, and health disparities. And as a member of the Black Ladies Advocating for Cancer Care, she's engaged in community-based participatory research, serving as the principal investigator for a study assessing the acceptability of a peer navigation program for Black breast cancer survivors and patients. Starla holds a BA in sociology and a master's in public administration from California State University, East Bay. That is very impressive, and I am familiar with your work with Black Ladies Advocating for Cancer Care because that's how we happen to know each other. I'm fortunate to be a community advisory board member there, and you do a fantastic job facilitating the research and also facilitating the meetings that we have every month. So thank you, and thank you for agreeing to be here today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you became a community health advocate? What's that been like for you?
Okay, so I would say I was born into my role as a community health advocate. I say that because, as you said in the introduction, I've been a lifelong social justice advocate. I felt the social injustices as a child, and, I was the one who was always, that's not fair, and growing and maturing. It went from, that's not fair to what can I do about it? Right. And so as I came into my 20s, I became pregnant with my first child. And so I found out that I was at risk for gestational diabetes and the preeclampsia, those sorts of things. Right. And I did suffer some of those issues while I was pregnant. And I was introduced to the Black Infant Health Program. I was living out in Pittsburgh at the time, and I was introduced to that program, and they explained a little bit about the goals of that program, and that kind of stuck with me. 5 years later, when I was pregnant with my second, I connected with the Black Infant Health Program in Berkeley. And at this time, I was once again going through different pregnancy concerns. I had a high risk pregnancy. And so I started attending the Black Infant Health pregnant mothers groups because I was off work. And within that group, as a participant, my advocacy for maternal and fetal health issues grew. That is because the program leaders, a part of their programming was to get the women that they were serving involved and to let us develop the program. So that fit right into my desire to figure out what can I do about it. And so I stuck with this group. I went from being a participant to being a member of their community advisory board. At that time, the governor, Schwarzenegger at the time, decimated the Black infant health budget. And that's where my activism sprung up. it was like, okay, so the budget is decimated. This program is likely going to close. We can't allow that to happen. We, the women of the program, we can't allow that to happen. What can we do? And we sat with leadership from the community advisory board. We sat with leadership from the program, and we devised a plan to get our program funded. If the state took this amount of money, well, this is a City of Berkeley program. It's sat within the City of Berkeley. Well, City of Berkeley, can you now fund the program fully so that we don't have to shut down? Because this program is actually very successful in helping to lower the rates of low birth weight babies and lower the rates of mothers having the babies early, which was a huge, huge issue in Berkeley. They had the highest rates in the nation, which is why Berkeley had its own distinct program, right? And we devised strategies to put the pressure on the city of Berkeley to fund the program. Of course, there was all of these reasons and excuses why not. And we leaned heavy into the data, and we leaned heavy into our community of mothers. I mean, we were at the city hall with our babies on our breast and with our signs and saying, City of Berkeley, please fund this program. Please keep this program going because this is a life-saving program, right?
And also, it was a high infant mortality rate at that time for Black
And a
infants
high
as
infant
well.
mortality rate as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Yes. And so we ended up winning. The city of Berkeley was able to make up most of the shortfall that was lost when the state of California withdrew a large portion of that monies. It became officially a City of Berkeley program. And not only that, I said they were able to almost fully fund. So they weren't able to bring it back to the level of funding that it was under the state. And so something did have to go. And that was the postpartum women's support group. Now, at this time, I was a member of the postpartum women's support group because I had had my child. And they said, we can no longer fund this program. And so I stepped up and said, hey, I will lead this program unpaid, volunteering for free.
Mhm. Beautiful.
And that was my start into community health advocacy and activism was through my very own experiences.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's such a story of empowerment. It shows you what's happening when you're really, really passionate about something and willing to do the work. So,
Mm-hmm.
excellent example of that as well. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with BLACC, because in this podcast, we're looking at women who either have been on the cancer journey themselves or who are bringing particular expertise to that community. And so tell us a little bit about the formation of BLACC. I see you were involved at the very, very early stages there as well. And what does BLACC, BLACC, stand for?
Okay. So BLACC, BLACC stands for Black Ladies Advocating for Cancer Care. And here's a bit about our start. You will notice a common thread with me. Most of the work that I do springs from my own experience in that field. So I was maybe like 2015, 16, I can't remember, pre-pandemic. I had discovered a lump. And I also had other symptoms such as discharge. And so I was going through a period, a diagnostic period of trying to figure out what this was. It definitely was a lump, but is it a cancerous lump? And so at that time, I was going to a Stanford clinic for my OBGYN care. And it was at that clinic that I saw a flyer, and it was Stanford Office of Community Education. They were advertising a study that they were doing specifically for Black breast cancer education, right? Education related to Black women experiencing breast cancer. They were actually looking for Black women with breast cancer, caregivers of women with breast cancer, on people whose families had experienced breast cancer, people who had some connection to breast cancer and were Black, because they were doing kind of like an educational and engagement series. They were gathering as many people as they could. They were educating us on all these different aspects of breast cancer, and then invited us to go and produce an engagement event. So share the information that we learned further. It was about 40 of us who started out together, learning together and co-creating these different engagement projects. And when it came to an end, there was a core group of us who was like, I enjoyed doing that work. I enjoyed putting together this engagement event from start to finish. And I want to continue doing this work. And you guys, Stanford, help us to continue to do this work. We don't know what that means. We just know we want to continue. So the principal investigator of that particular study, Lisa Goldman Roses, she said, sure, let me see if I can find some funding so that we can continue to do this work. So a group of 6 of us continued on with Lisa. She found an opportunity with the California Breast Cancer Research Project that is funding out of the University of California Office of the Presidency, right? And they were funding a pilot study around breast cancer, right? And so we applied, we co-wrote the grant together, we applied, and we received the grant. Now, they funded us to build capacity amongst the members. They funded us to create a community advisory board, of which you were a part of the first round, right? And they funded us to do a little preliminary thinking about a peer navigation program. We knew we wanted to develop a peer navigation program, and this first round of funding gave us a start in kind of pulling everything together, talking to breast cancer survivors, talking to their caregivers, talking to organizations related to it, to breast cancer. And that gave us a really firm foundation in us building a peer navigation program. So that is where BLACC got its start as participants in a study who wanted to do more, who wanted to keep going.
Oh, that's really incredible. That passion is just the theme that I see running through your life. The passion to really make a difference in the world in whatever area you are focused on. So that's pretty incredible. So, what's happening with the research study right now?
So after we concluded, I'll call it our exploratory research phase, we applied for another round of funding and we got it. And with this round of funding, we promised to refine this peer navigation program that we began the preliminary work on. And we said that not only do we want to refine the program, but we want to hire a peer navigator. We want to partner with Charlotte Maxwell Clinic, and they will host the site for the peer navigation program. And we want to measure the acceptability of the peer navigation program that we built together. Really tall order. So we were given 3 years to do this. We know, you know, that with the assistance of Stanford, Charlotte Maxwell Clinic, the ladies from BLACC, and our community advisory board, we all work together to develop that peer navigation program, to refine that program. We talked about it, we laid it out, and we established it, right? And not only that, we co-wrote a job description for the peer navigator. That took months, right? Deciding who is this person that we're looking for, what kind of skills. We did the hiring together. Everyone played a part in all of that. So when we finally hired our peer navigator and started outreach into the community, looking for participants in the peer navigation program, we have gotten our peer navigation program rolling. We have about 20 clients right now. And at every step of the way, we're constantly refining this program together.
Mhm, mhm. Can you
And
talk
that's
a
where we
little,
are.
beautiful, beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about, like, for the listening audience that may not know what a peer navigator does, like, What does that entail? Why was it so important to have this particular project?
The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs.
So we developed this project because, unfortunately, even though Black women experience breast cancer at a lower rate than white women, that's usually the comparison. So even though we usually experience breast cancer at a lower rate, we die from it far more often. We get far more aggressive and deadly forms. We tend to discover the breast cancer at a later stage. And so just really, really bad statistics for Black women, right? And a part of the education and engagement that we did prior, one of the questions was, well, can we figure out why we're doing so much worse? Well, that takes a certain level of expertise. So maybe we can't figure out the why, but we can figure out an intervention that will help women to successfully complete their treatment and to feel better. So to improve their health outcomes after they've concluded their treatment or just through the rest of their lives, even after they are survivors of the disease, right? So improving the health outcomes and we just wanted to intervene. If we can't figure out why, what can we do to help women to get through this better? And that's how we came up with the peer navigation program. So maybe if we had a program that was solely focused on Black women and really catered to them, then women will want to participate. They will receive all kinds of support that they need. And not only that, how about we provide a medical intervention that can assist women in getting through their treatments with ease? We have spoken to Charlotte Maxwell Clinic, which is an integrative care clinic. Charlotte Maxwell offers free services to women with cancer who are low income. Those services include acupuncture and massage and Reiki and sound healing and herbalists, all of the holistic care that people often have to pay a good amount of money in order to participate, right? They offer these services for free to women who are low income. So we said they're the perfect partner. We want to introduce integrative care services to our population because these are services that can help as you're going through treatment. Say you're doing chemo or radiation, maybe you feel like giving up because it's just, wreaking havoc on your body. I actually had a family member with a different kind of cancer, and the treatment was wreaking such havoc. They gave up and they passed away, unfortunately, right? So maybe there are some therapies that can help a person to get through their treatments a little bit better. And maybe that's a life-saving intervention that we're able to provide through this peer navigation program. Maybe some women, need connection to social support. Well, that's a part of our peer navigation program. Maybe some women need connection to other resources. All of their money may be allocated to paying for treatments and things like that. And maybe they need help with groceries or travel or things like that. Well, let's connect these women to those resources. Let's help them to feel supported because a person who feels more supported, is going to have a better health outcome than someone who just feels really beat down by their experience. you know, that's going to lend to poorer health. So that's the goal with the peer navigation program. And those are some of the services that we offer in anticipation of women going through all of these various sorts of challenges.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I recall the level of care and concern that went into really zeroing in on finding someone that women would feel comfortable with, someone who was knowledgeable, who had experience, had the right personality to really be a support for the women in the research project. So that was really very, very impressive as well. And Charlotte Maxwell Clinic is the reason why I'm involved with this advisory board because Love Letters to Our Bodies is the project, and we partner with Charlotte Maxwell for offering these workshops to women each year where they really focus on the mind, body, spirit connection and have an opportunity to be introduced to tools that can support them. Some of these integrative tools that you've just mentioned that can support them on their journey, and some things that they can do on their own for more energy, to help assimilate medications better. So yeah, we're all in alignment in terms of, and these workshops are free also. We're all in alignment in terms of really helping our sisters have the best possible outcome as they go through this journey. So very, very impressive. So tell me what it's like partnering with an academic institution such as Stanford, the golden child.
We have benefited so much from our partnership with Stanford. And I want to say, what we are doing is the ideal in research. Before I even got involved in research, I always said, we can't have people coming into the community and taking for their own purposes and not leaving anything behind. I had been involved in research studies and they took what they needed and I never heard anything from them again. And I don't even know how my participation benefited the community, right? Our partnership with Stanford has, I would say, it has greatly benefited our community. The women, the leadership of BLACC, we have learned so much about the research process because we have been not just ride alongs, but we have been true partners at every step of the way. We had to receive education on something called an IRB, a very administrative kind of thing. But when you do research, there are all these rules that you have to follow and things such as that. So we had to learn what those rules are and learn how to apply for IRB approval. We had to learn about the research process, what we can and cannot do if we're going to be working with human subjects, things such as that. We learned how to complete a research grant application, and we wrote those applications together. We learned how to analyze data. We learned how to take a conversation and break it down into code so that we can analyze all of these long conversations that we had with people, right? So not only was it skill improvement for us, it was also connecting and expanding our reach really far. The people who are involved in Stanford Medicine's Office of Community Engagement, their reach is so expansive. And I will say that Lisa does a great job of introducing the Black ladies, introducing the cab to her vast network of people, and them introducing even more people into the network. And the reason why that's so important is we're trying to spread the work that we're doing. And our relationship with Stanford has really made that possible. I mean, this is a really feasible thing. We're not just talking, we can really expand this project, nationwide because of the connections that we've been able to build.
That's really, really wonderful. And I love what you said about all the things that you had to learn in the process. And I noticed, for instance, in your background that you graduated from Cal State East Bay. And by the way, our credentials are the same, exactly the same. I just went several years earlier when it was called Hayward, but the same undergraduate and graduate degrees. And so I thought, yes, there's a sister here. I understand that. Yeah. So in your education program, you were exposed to research.
Absolutely.
And so you just continue to build on that. So that's really great. Tell me, so you have touched on this quite a bit as we've talked. I can follow the threads in our conversation about the importance of this work and why it's important. And I want to ask you also, like, what can the public do who's listening to this? How can they be supportive? Do you have all the women you need in the program? Is there any outreach or any community support that can happen that can help expand the outreach further?
So this work is so important because we are trying to save the lives of Black women. Breast cancer is cancer is one of the leading causes of death in the Black community. There is a really high prevalence of breast cancer, and it is really stealing our sisterhood away because we are the ones dying from it. There are plenty of people surviving breast cancer, but unfortunately for our demographic, there are plenty of people who are dying from it and at a much younger age. I can't believe the age statistics, especially compared to other people. We have deaths of women in their 40s and their 30s from this disease. We need to save our women, right? I really feel like women really hold this thing up and hold this thing together. So
Absolutely.
we need to save them. We need to support our women. One way that you can directly support BLACC in our efforts is we are currently recruiting for participants. And so if you know any Black women who are either currently experiencing breast cancer, going through treatment, or who are survivors, we didn't stop at people who are currently experiencing. We also have a really big focus on survivorship because unfortunately, we have a higher reoccurrence rate, right? A much higher reoccurrence rate. So even if the women have made it into their survivorship, there's a very high chance that they will experience breast cancer again. And so we have to look at this for the rest of these women's lives, thinking about how to support someone through their journey and beyond. So we are seeking participants for our peer navigation program. And we are always looking to connect with people who are able to provide education on the topic, who are passionate about engaging other communities in learning about our issues and coming up with solutions for our issues. And we are currently seeking another part time peer navigator. So if you know anyone who would be a great peer navigator, we have an opening 20 hours per week, a little bit of time on site at Charlotte Maxwell Clinic in Oakland, but primarily remote work. That is another way that folks can help, is if you know someone who would be a perfect peer navigator.
Mhm. And so that peer navigator has to be a person who's experienced cancer and breast cancer specifically, or any form, or
Someone who has experience preferably in breast cancer, but in cancer in general, someone who would be able to connect with people on their journey. And they don't have to have experienced cancer directly or breast cancer directly. We had a peer navigator who unfortunately had to stop working with us, but she was a clinician who provided services for breast cancer patients. And so there was that kind of a direct connection if you have not experienced breast cancer yourself.
Mhm. Okay, that's great. That's great. So we'll be putting your contact information in the show notes so people can follow up with you on that. And we'll include a link to the flyer where the announcement is made about the peer navigation program and recruitment for the peer navigator. So we'll include that in the show notes as well. This has been really incredible, Starla. I appreciate your time, and I really just want to acknowledge you for your passion, for your commitment, and for all the good work you're doing in the community and everything that you and BLACC has done to address this kind of missing link, in the process for Black women who are journeying with cancer. The work is really commendable.
Thank you. As you can tell, I'm so passionate about it. I really am. And it is absolutely an honor to do the work that I do. And whenever I get the opportunity to work directly with the participants, I absolutely love it and I'm honored.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to end this episode of our Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. And I want to thank our listeners for being here. Also, invite you to go to moyoinstitute.org for more information about the podcast and podcast episodes and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.